My favorite science story this week is about a trip I took to British Columbia to look for a bat. And not only did I find the bat, I also found out a really neat thing about its echolocation, and now I've got a scientific question that I want to find the answer to. So, I've been a Canadian bat biologist for like 25 years, and somehow I've never seen Canada's most charismatic bat. The spotted bat only lives in central BC. I mean, it lives in the States too, but in Canada, it only occurs in central BC. It has these spectacular pink ears. It's got these 3 white dots on its black fur. It is just like the craziest looking bat you can imagine. And the neatest thing about it is its echolocation. All the bats, almost all the bats that echolocate do it at a frequency that's too high pitched for a human to hear. We hear up to about 20 kilohertz. Bats are up at like 30, 40, or even like 100 kilohertz. They're all really high pitched noises, so we can't hear them. The spotted bat has a low pitched voice. Its voice, its echolocation is so low that you can hear it. It's 8 to 10 kilohertz, so well within the range of human hearing. And so one way to see this bat is to not see it, but just to hear it. So when I realized I had a talk booked in Penticton, BC, I was like, that's it, I'm going to look for this bat. And what I did is I called up my buddy John Ratcliffe and I said, hey John, I'm going to BC to look for this bat. Do you want to come? And John is also a bat biologist. We did our master's degrees together way back in the day, and he studies echolocation, and he also is very curious about this bat. So he said, well, I've been meaning to do a study. I'll come with you to BC. So John and I flew into Kelowna together. I gave my talk in Penticton, and then we went off on this side quest to look for spotted bats. And the first night, we went to a place, it's a nature reserve, where we'd been told spotted bats occur in huge numbers in the middle of summer. Now, it's only May right now, so maybe not as many numbers, but it's like fishing. Even if you go and you don't find anything, it's still worthwhile. We headed out to this nature reserve. We didn't bring nets because we didn't have permission. Or permits. We didn't bring bat detectors because, frankly, I think we're kind of stupid. We should have brought bat detectors. But we knew that if this bat was there, we would hear it. And so we went to this one cliff face with a crack in it. We'd been told that there's a big colony of these bats in that crack. And we sat there and just waited for them to come out. And we had to wait actually quite a long time, but eventually it got dark. And then we had this magic moment where we heard a bat. And I made a little quick video right after it happened. All right, so John and I are here. It's what time? 9:25. And we just heard a bat.
We did.
And there's only one bat you can hear. It's a spotted bat. Flew right by us.
Yeah, and we heard it.
We heard it, and then we hugged. This is so cool. Pretty crazy. And we heard a few more. And the thing is, the bats weren't coming out of that crack. As far as we can tell, that crack doesn't have any bats in it. But they were passing through. And so we learned something about how the bats were using that habitat, at least at this time of year. After it got fully dark, the bats are just passing through. They're coming from the south and they're going to the north. But here's the thing, and this is the fun part. We could hear that the bats were flying at very close to the ground because you could hear the echolocation. You could hear it go by your head at about that height. And that's different from what we'd been told because the literature says these bats always fly high. They're always 10 meters off the ground. And we were confused by that. So while the bats were flying, John brought a thermal camera and we tried to get a video of these bats flying by. And you could hear the bat, and you'd point the camera where you could hear the sound coming from. There was no bat in the shot. But then if you tilt it up, there was a bat above that. The bats are flying high, but the bats sound like they're flying at ear level. That's super weird. Like if you hear a bird flying over and it's calling, you can tell where the sound is coming from. But there's something about this bat's voice where it's doing an acoustic illusion. So is that just the nature of that sound and a shortcoming of our hearing? Or is that something the bat's doing on purpose? Like what is that all about? What's the story of that? That is a scientific question that we came up with in the moment. And John studies echolocation. He's like the best person to figure this one out. And I'm excited to work with him on it. So now we have the scientific question we're gonna work on. So anyway, great night, couldn't have gone better. The next day, we drove to Lillooet, BC to meet with Corey Lawson. Corey Lawson is a friend of ours from back in grad school. She was in grad school at the same time we were, but she's gone on to become this just absolute leader in bat biology in Canada, and she's done so much work in British Columbia. She's spent more time in the field catching bats in BC than I've spent in traffic in Toronto, and I think that's literally true. Just amazing work, and she has seen more spotted bats than you can shake a stick at. So she knew a site near Lillooet, and also we were excited to hang out with her. So we met up, we hung out in Lillooet, we went out into a field site, just the most beautiful sort of plateau on the edge of a cliff overlooking the Fraser River. And these bats, apparently, in the summer, when it's super, super hot here, and I mean like the hottest place in Canada hot, the bats all fly really high above the river and forage along this cliff edge. And in the summer, she can hear bats going by, several of them every minute. And so anyway, we went there, but it's only May, so we heard, I think, 2 bats on the whole night. But listen, 2 spotted bats is still infinitely better than nothing. And we got to hang out in a beautiful place. And then John and I headed back to towards the airport in Kelowna, but we had one more stop to make before we left, and that was to visit this old schoolhouse in a place called Peachland that is full of little brown bats and Myotis humanensis, Yuma bats. So little brown bats are Myotis lucifagus, Yuma bats are Myotis humanensis. They're very similar, but they live together in the schoolhouse, and it's a nice little story because it was a schoolhouse, but it was infested with bats, and they were like, oh no, we got to deal with this, but you can't move the bats because they're endangered. And so they turned it into a tourist attraction. So now it's this beautiful art gallery. They've fixed the building up. They've renovated it so the bats have space that's sealed off and away from people. So people get to use the space during the day. And then at night, these bats come out of the belfries. Are they belfries? I don't know. What do you call those things? They've got slits on them so the bats can get in and out. And these bats are using it. There are like 1,500 bats in there in the summer. And so John and I spent our last evening in Peachland just sitting and looking at these bats as they came out from this building. And is there anything better in the world? Honestly. Anyway, it was a great trip. And it was also a good way to remember that part of what makes bat biology so fun is the people who do bat biology with me. Hanging out with Ratcliffe was a sincere pleasure. Love that guy. Seeing Corey Lawson was great too. She's so interesting. I respect her so much. She does such great work. And yeah, I'm just really proud to be part of the bat biology community too. So anyway, it was just, my heart's exploding with happiness. And I just wanted to tell you about it. So that's my favorite science story this week. And we'll see you next time.